System that runs like prophecy. Signed not with spite, but with control. The Slack channel lit up with a message that wasn't meant for me. Once we cut her, we'll reclaim full access. She's legacy wait. That line dropped into the hash leadership backroom thread by mistake. I wasn't supposed to see it. I wasn't supposed to exist past 5 p.m. that day. But someone forgot to revoke my permissions before stabbing me in the back, and unfortunately for them, I built the permissions tree. I sat there in my tiny cube under flickering fluorescent light, holding a sad Tupperware of cold soba noodles, rereading the message over and over until the words blurred. My heart didn't sink, it calcified. Legacy wait, like I was a dusty file cabinet or a printer that jammed too often. You ever spend 15 years patching a system so brittle it screamed when you breathed wrong? I'd done it barefoot during reorgs, holidays, even my divorce. I missed my own mother's funeral to push a hotfix when their payment gateway exploded on Black Friday. But sure, let's call me non-essential. By 5:17 p.m., I was in the HR glass tank, pretending not to notice the new intern sweating through his shirt while reading from a termination script. I didn't protest. I didn't even blink. I just signed the papers, nodded once, and walked out. Not with tears. Not with a box of desk clutter, my badge and a tiny brass key they didn't know existed. Back in 2011, I designed a cold storage protocol after that S3 outage nuked a client's staging environment. The protocol was shelved, too paranoid, they said. But I'd kept the keys, physical ones. And at the bottom of my bag, still warm from my palm, was the master admin token, a hardware fob hardwired into the infrastructure's root trust chain. They thought they'd locked me out, that I'd vanish into LinkedIn posts and job board limbo like the others. They didn't know the backup server in Montreal still pinged my IP every 72 hours. They didn't know the dead letter queues had one silent process named Evelyn Sleep. They didn't know the real admin shell required voice print confirmation, mine. So that night, I made a cup of oolong, sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, lit a candle I'd stolen from the office yoga room, and whispered into my mic. Override authentication. Evelyn, begin heartbeat. The screen flickered. One line of green text. Root access enabled, and somewhere in their overpriced server farm, a silent process blinked awake for the first time in 12 years. By sunrise, they'd be begging me to log back in. But I wasn't here to fix anything. Not this time. At 2:06 a.m., East Coast Load Balancer began rerouting traffic into a black hole I'd left behind in an old subnet from the Equinox migration. A hidden node labeled /dev/null/dead canary, cloaked in enough noise to pass as test debris. Their dashboards showed mild latency. Their ops team saw scheduled maintenance. But I saw what they didn't. 15 years of my life bleeding through a surgical incision, I cut myself. The first text came from Brad, Golden Retriever CIO, who once told me my communication style could use a bit more sparkle. Hey Evelyn, weird Q, did we ever sunset that data center failover script in West CA? No, Brad, we didn't. Because I never told you it existed. Because I knew one day I'd need it. I didn't reply. I sipped my tea and watched a CSV file grow by the second, logging every admin attempt that failed. 19, 47, 92 were flailing, but they didn't know why yet. I left them a trail. Cruel, maybe, but I wanted them to feel the edges of their own arrogance. At 3:21 a.m., their marketing site went into safe mode. The homepage flickered to a placeholder. Welcome to Bright Spark. We'll be right back. But the source code said something else. A comment injected on line 74. Legacy wait doesn't forget. Still, they didn't call. At 4:03, SSO gateway timed out across all internal tools. By 4:15, 37 engineers had been locked out of their own machines. At 4:22, an exec tried to brute force the master shell and triggered a honeypot that sent me a screen cap of his desktop. His wallpaper, me, at a team offsite, holding the most reliable firefighter award they gave me the year they forgot my birthday. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something close to peace. Not joy, not revenge, something deeper. Control, because they didn't fire me. They fired a woman who memorized every soft belly in their infrastructure and never once forgot where she buried the knives. But they still hadn't reached out. So I opened a private Slack channel I hadn't touched in years. A dead space with no integrations, no history, just two members, me and Nora Jameson. their new VP of engineering. The same woman who'd once asked me, over a lukewarm kombucha, if I ever felt like I'd aged out of innovation. She was about to find out just how timeless I could be. I typed 5 words, "You feel it yet, Nora?" and waited. The typing bubble blinked once, disappeared. Then the silence dragged. 30 seconds, a minute. Long enough for me to imagine her sitting in her sleek corner office, staring at the screen in her bone-white blazer, wondering if someone was pranking her. Or worse, she wasn't the one in control anymore. Then it came. "Evelyn, is this some kind of joke?" "Oh, Nora." I stared at that sentence like it was a museum exhibit, a perfectly preserved fossil of denial. The same woman who once stripped me of production access for security realignment, now sitting in the fallout of security protocol, I wrote before her LinkedIn profile had a profile picture. I replied, "Check the auth logs." Then check the Montreal ping history and sit very, very still. It took her 4 minutes. I know because I watched her SSH into the failover box, panic type 3 wrong passwords, then trigger the voice prompt. I watched the system reject her voice print with a flat, surgical, access denied. Voice match not found. Evelyn Chen only. Then she came back. "Jesus Christ, what do you want?" And there it was. Not confusion, not sass, just the bare tremble of someone realizing the castle they'd been guarding was built from my blueprints. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I scrolled through my private archive of internal emails, ones I'd mirrored automatically for years into a sandboxed container. One caught my eye. From Nora Jameson to Executive HR plus Brad subject. Succession planning. Evelyn exit strategy. It was dated 2 months before my firing. I read it again, slow. It laid it out like a chessboard. Retire her quietly. No headlines. Preserve access paths post-departure. Initiate junior transition by Q4. They've been plotting this for months. Even trained a 23-year-old with a YouTube cert to mirror Evelyn's skill set. The same kid who once hard deleted a shared S3 bucket during a lunch break because the name sounded temporary. I copied the thread, sent it to Nora in the Slack channel, and added one more message. This isn't about revenge, it's about architecture. Bad decisions have consequences. A pause, then, "You'll be sued for this," I laughed, out loud, scared my neighbor's cat, then typed, "Sued for what?" Breaching a protocol that doesn't exist in your current documentation. Using access no one revoked. You'd have to admit you left your entire infrastructure wired through one person you didn't respect enough to retain. Another pause. So what now? Want to be rehired? Paid off. She still didn't get it, still looking for the leverage, the negotiation, so I dropped the photo. A screenshot from their upcoming investor deck. Their $12 million round announcement, with projected uptime stats and compliance graphs that would now collapse under audit if anyone so much as poked the stack. Then one more file, final contract draft non-disclosure PDF signed by Nora. Dated 1 week before my firing, clause that guaranteed I'd maintain operational knowledge on a rolling consulting retainer for 6 months. They forgot to terminate the clause. I wrote, "You're not paying me for silence. You're paying me because your system needs me to speak." Then I went quiet, let her stew. At 4:59 a.m., my phone buzzed, unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Evelyn, it's Brad, we need you on a bridge call." Urgently, I smiled at the silent stretch. "Evelyn, are you there?" I lit another candle, then said, "Sure, Brad. But this time I'll be the one writing the script." And I joined the call. The Zoom call was already chaos when I entered. A dozen windows filled the screen, faces blurred by low lighting and high stress, execs in rumpled shirts, engineers sweating under ring lights, one guy clearly calling from a bathroom stall judging by the echo. And smack in the middle, Nora, composed, jaw tight, wearing that same dead-eyed expression she once gave me during a team offsite right before telling me my job title was under review. "Evelyn," Brad said, smiling like he wasn't quietly melting from the inside. "Thanks for joining on such short notice. We're, having some environment issues. Environment issues. Like it was a leaky pipe, not a full system root seizure." I gave him nothing, just stared. Let the dead air do the talking. Nora jumped in. Access protocols are being blocked by a shadow process, one that seems to have legacy routing permissions tied to an outdated voice print. "We're assuming it's yours." And, I said, casually biting into a fig like I wasn't holding their entire infrastructure hostage. "We need to regain operational control," Nora snapped. We're in the middle of a compliance audit, and if the stack stays down, you'll default on your investor terms. I finished for her. Clause 3.2 in your Series B agreement. Uptime guarantee within 99.98%. You're currently at 62% and sinking. Brad coughed. One of the engineers blinked like he might cry. Someone muted and unmuted twice, then gave up. I leaned in. You built this stack on my architecture. But instead of migrating through me, you tried to surgically extract me like I was a cyst. You didn't remove the brain, just unplugged the spine. Look, Brad said we may have mishandled your offboarding, but this isn't the way. Brad, I said, you offboarded me like expired milk. No notice, no handover, just a bland PDF and a discount coffee voucher. And now you want me to fix the very machine you gutted me from. Nora tried again, her voice cold. You've made your point. What do you want? I clicked share screen. Call went dead silent as my desktop appeared. A live readout of the real-time failover logs. Red blocks blinking like a cardiac monitor flatlining. Then I opened a text file titled, Resignation Letter V2.0 My Terms. It was 5 bullet points long. Retroactive CTO title, effective 1 year backdated. Full equity vesting. Public apology memo from leadership, acknowledging strategic misalignment in talent handling. Lifetime advisory seat. Veto rights. Nora's resignation. Immediate. Someone on the call said Jesus. Someone else said Holy SH and cut themselves off. Brad was pale. Evelyn, this isn't realistic. You're asking for, I'm not asking, I said. I'm offering you a ladder out of the fire. Because without me, this house collapses by sunrise. Nora's eyes didn't move. She was trying to calculate, measure, scheme. You could almost see the gears turning behind her temples. I delivered the part I'd saved. The crack in the dam. Nora, I said softly, should I screen share your Slack DMs next? Or would you prefer I forward them directly to the board? She blinked. Once. Brad leaned into frame. What DMs? I didn't wait. I dragged a folder labeled /exfil Slack 2203 into the chat. Nora's voice rose. This is blackmail. No, I said. This is disaster recovery. And then I smiled for the first time that night. Suggest you unmute the board rep. He's been on the call for 10 minutes, all heads turned. A new window lit up. Quiet, sharp suit, calm voice. Evelyn, let's talk. And that's when I knew I wasn't the legacy anymore. I was the future they didn't see coming. The board rep's name was Ellis Hart. I remembered him vaguely, quiet guy from legal who once spilled espresso on my laptop and sent me a $5 Starbucks card like that fixed anything. Tonight, though, his camera was on, suit was pressed, and every muscle in his jaw was locked like a vault. Evelyn, he said, voice calm, I've read the terms. You're asking for a complete inversion of the current leadership structure. No, I corrected. I'm offering a system restore to when the company functioned. I watched Nora's eye twitch at that. You're requesting the immediate removal of an acting VP, Ellis began. I'm requiring it, I cut in. Or would you prefer I upload a detailed timeline of Nora's restructuring failures, including the unvetted security contractor who hard-coded plaintext passwords into a public GitHub repo? One of the engineers on the call actually gasped. I knew the name of the contractor. I had the screenshot. I had everything. Ellis didn't flinch. You'd be willing to publish that? I stared directly into the webcam. I've already scheduled it, I said. Zoom call is your 15-minute grace window. After that, Git Blast gets a new trending repo tagged #infrastructure negligence, and every journalist with a tech beat gets an anonymous Dropbox. You'd crater us, Brad said, voice cracking. Investors would pull out, the audit would collapse. You did that, I said coolly, when you decided the person holding the keys was non-essential. Silence. Nora finally spoke, slow and venom-laced. You don't deserve a CTO title. You're a bitter sysadmin with a superiority complex. I smiled like a knife. And you're a second-rate strategist with a copy-paste MBA who couldn't architect her way out of a JIRA ticket, I said. You didn't just underestimate me, you tried to overwrite me. And now your little patch update just ran out of disk space. Nora stood up. Her camera jolted, showing a blurred view of ceiling tiles. She was walking. Pacing. Each building. You realize, she hissed, even if they give you what you want, no one will trust you again. You've poisoned your own future. My future? I said, tilting my head. I'm not worried about my future, Nora. I built a future-proof system. Yours, on the other hand, is already bricked. Then I played my final card, a video file. Just audio, really, but it was enough. It was Nora, caught during a strategy call, laughing, "Evelyn, please, I'm just waiting until she's off payroll." Then we rewrite history and pretend she was never here. I let that play, all 15 seconds. Ellis leaned forward slowly. "Nora, is that your voice?" She didn't answer, couldn't. Brad looked nauseous. I checked the clock. 5:42 a.m. "Final offer," I said. "You sign, she's gone, and I stabilize the stack before investors wake up. Or you stall, and I let your empire rot in its own version control history." Ellis muted briefly. A full 30 seconds passed. Then he came back, "We accept." Nora's square vanished, kicked from the call. And just like that, I became CTO. Not with applause, not with ceremony, just a silent promotion forged in fire and archived Slack logs. I muted, leaned back, and typed 4 keystrokes into my terminal. The heartbeat returned. Systems rebooted. Production stood up, obedient as ever. But I wasn't done, because Nora wasn't working alone. And the next name on my list started with a B and thought loyalty was just a budget line item. He was about to learn what legacy meant. Brad always thought of himself as the glue. That's how he introduced himself at every town hall. "I'm not a coder, not a finance guy, I'm the glue." "No, Brad, you were the chewing gum under the desk. Forgotten, flavorless, and stuck in places nobody wanted to clean. I knew he'd reach out privately. That's what cowards do. Blame someone else in public, then beg for mercy in private. Sure enough, at 6:03 a.m., just 21 minutes after Nora's video got her evicted from the kingdom she tried to rule, a calendar invite popped up. Coffee, subject line, just that, no body text. Sender, Brad Monroe. I clicked accept and sent him a meeting link to a private video call. No admins, no logs, just me. Man who once said I was too detail-focused for leadership. And a storm of receipts he had no clue I'd been quietly organizing since 2018. He joined with a nervous smile and the world's smallest mug. Ceramic, chipped, probably stolen from the break room. "Evelyn," he started, voice syrupy, "I want to first congratulate you. Seriously, you outmaneuvered her. That was something." "No, Brad," I said, "that was overdue." He cleared his throat. "Look, I just want to make sure we're aligned going forward. Clean slate, right? We're going to build something better, smarter together." I tilted my head. "You fired me." "I didn't. Well, technically, that was Nora, but you were on the email, Brad. You wrote 'looks good to me' next to my termination packet." He froze. I watched the blood drain from his face like someone pulled the plug. "Okay," he said quietly. "Maybe I didn't handle it right. I was under pressure." "From who?" Silence. "Brad," I said, "do you want to know how I knew this was never just Nora's idea?" He didn't answer, but I kept going. "She didn't know about the Montreal heartbeat. You did. You were the only other person in leadership CC'd on the disaster protocol, and you knew exactly what would happen when that key stopped pinging." I dropped a screenshot into the call, an internal chat transcript between Brad and a board liaison. "If we move Evelyn out quietly, I've confirmed she's got no legal recourse. Montreal heartbeat should expire in 48 hours. We just have to survive her offboarding window." He stared at it. "I never wanted this to be ugly," he muttered. "You were just too powerful, too connected to the system." The board was nervous. "You mean you were nervous," I said, "because your roadmap depended on replacing me with someone cheaper, someone controllable." He didn't deny it, just looked tired. "I can resign," he said, "if that's what you're after." I laughed once. Sharp, quick. "Brad, this isn't about your resignation. This is about your legacy. I want it shredded. I want your glue persona dissolved into the archives. You don't get to float out on a cloud of LinkedIn platitudes and startup consulting gigs." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're going to give me every internal doc, every salary decision, every strategic trade-off memo you signed off on. Then you're going to issue a company-wide statement admitting your role in the mismanagement of senior infrastructure personnel. You'll say my removal was a mistake. You'll say you were the mistake." His voice broke. "You'll ruin me." "No, Brad," I said, cool as stone. "You did that? I'm just pressing send." He started to cry. I ended the call. 5 minutes later, a new ping. Subject: for review leadership accountability memo draft V1 attached. Everything I asked for, plus one extra file I hadn't requested. Board notes Q3 strategy re. Evelyn Chen. I opened it and froze, because Brad wasn't the only one who tried to erase me. There was one more name. Higher, cleaner, smarter. And if I was going to finish this purge, I'd need to aim at someone who didn't just survive in the shadows, they engineered them. It was buried in Appendix C of the board packet. Dry language, legal phrasing so sterile it could have passed for hospital paperwork, until I saw the signature at the bottom. Margaret Leclerc, chairwoman of the board, the ghost in the machine. She never came to team calls, never replied to Slack. Her name was a whisper on every promotion freeze, every budget rollback. I once saw her in person for 3 minutes during a town hall back in 2017. She shook my hand, smiled like a statue, told me I was a stabilizing force. Now her name sat under a clause labeled Post-Departure Systemic Streamlining for Legacy Architect Offboarding X001. X001, me. I wasn't a person in her ledger. I was a use case, a resource to be sunsetted. Brad hadn't pulled the trigger, he was the finger. She was the hand, and she was still in play. I scrolled further. A strategy note following Q3. Eliminate all non-scalable talent. Over-reliant engineers should be replaced by modular contractors. EC001 demonstrates high systems loyalty, dangerous. Remove and replace before Q4 audit window. They didn't just fire me, they engineered my deletion. But I wasn't deleted, I was rebuilt, so I crafted my message. Short, simple. Margaret, we need to talk. You built a shadow system, now I'm the floodlight. I CC'd the board, legal, PR, investors, the entire damn food chain. I attached the strategy memo, time-stamped, highlighted, undeniable. 3 minutes later, my inbox lit up like Vegas. Let's set a time. Urgent. Please advise before media escalation. Do you have proof these quotes are authentic? Margaret is preparing a response, please hold. But I didn't hold. I fired first. I uploaded the memo to an internal bulletin page under the banner. Legacy Protocols. When leadership plays God with people. It went viral inside the company in 14 minutes. Developers messaged me crying. Old-timers I hadn't heard from in years demed things like holy F. I always knew, and she tried this with finance too. The HR team, silent. Legal, spinning, and Margaret. Margaret requested a private resolution, so I gave her one. A meeting. No cameras, no PR staff. Just her voice and mine, 2 decades of blood and blueprint between us. She opened cold. Evelyn, you've made your point. No, I said. Not yet, you're brilliant, she said. But you're a relic. You build like the old guard. Complex, manual, human, and you, I asked. You build like a sociopath, hollow, disposable. You forgot one thing, Margaret, machines may scale, but people remember. I was optimizing survival. For who? She paused. That was the tell? Margaret Leclerc didn't pause. She calculated. Then she said, what do you want? That's when I slid the real file across the digital table. The second memo, the one she didn't know I had. A memo approving an off-the-books cloud migration contract, signed with her name, routed through an alias account in Singapore. Your empire isn't scalable anymore, I said. But it is combustible. She didn't argue. She just exhaled like a machine powering down. What's your offer? My offer, I said. Step down, publicly. Leave your legacy in the rubble you built it from, or I detonate everything you buried under confidential. This time, the explosion has names, dates, and receipts. Her reply was one word, soft, flat, understood. That night, she resigned, blamed health. The board praised her visionary leadership, but everyone knew. And the next morning, the admin console login banner changed. Welcome back, Evelyn. System integrity restored. But I wasn't finished restoring. Because this wasn't just about me. This was about every forgotten architect they ever ghosted. And it was time the whole damn industry saw what happened when one of us rewrote the root access manual. I didn't give a victory speech. I wrote a changelog, 1 entry, 1 sentence. Removed deprecated leadership structures causing recursive failures. Then I got to work. Within 48 hours, I reversed every cost-cutting streamline Nora had pushed. Restored the mentorship programs she'd axed. Reopened the ticket that flagged our Singapore transfer logs, the one Brad buried under 6 layers of Jira hell. And I left a trail. Not hidden, not encrypted. Public, transparent. A living document titled what they tried to erase. Employees read it like gospel. Contractors printed it out and taped it above their desks. Even junior engineers, ones they swore could replace me for 1/3 the cost, started sending me thank you messages. One said, you made me believe this place could be human again. I didn't cry. I just bookmarked it, next to the Slack logs, next to the VoicePrint archive, next to a folder titled /proof that burned bridges can power cities / because here's the truth nobody says out loud in tech. We're told we're replaceable, disposable, that our loyalty is sentimental, our instincts outdated, and our resistance to chaos is not agile enough. But they forget something. We remember everything, every midnight deployment, every undocumented fix, every duct-taped emergency that made them millions. And when they strip our names from the credits, when they tag us non-essential and walk us to the elevator like ghosts, they think we'll disappear quietly. But sometimes we become the system. And when the stack starts bleeding from the seams, when the dashboard flatlines, when the backups fail and the failovers scream, they come crawling back, whispering for password. And if you're me, you don't give them a password. You give them a lesson, carved into the infrastructure, immutable, signed by root. And that lesson is this: next time, don't forget who built the cloud you're choking in.